lot of people going back and forth about how much a man should pay in a relationship. Some people say the man is supposed to pay 100%, and that harks back to a time when the patriarchy was in full effect, when traditional notions of family were still in place. A lot of women want that, but then they also want to be, independent, strong, don't need a man. And in response, a lot of men are saying, well, I want a woman to go 50-50. And some men just say, hey, just the way things are right now, 50-50 makes sense. We got a lifestyle that we live and we enjoy it, and you should pay half. The thing about that is, ladies, you need to understand something. If a man is really into you and he really likes you, then he will try his best not only to pay all the bills, but he'll make up other stuff to pay. He'll take you on trips, buy you gifts, pay your car note. He'll do everything he can within reason. But 50-50 is paying the bills is the absolute minimum that a man who really likes you would do. And I know it's going to be a lot of guys out there who say something like, well, no, that's not true. And those men are lying. They're lying because they want to keep the women that they want to keep in their life on the cheap. They want you to pay 50-50. And if they can convince you to pay 50-50 and still have you, then they will. Because at the end of the day, if you force them to pay full price and they won't, guess what? They're going to leave you. So what does that tell you? That tells you if they can't have you for half price, they don't want you at all. And then we go back to the situation that you're not worth it if they're not willing to pay full price for you. If they're not willing to pay 100% of the cost of living for you, that's, like I said, that's absolute minimum. You mean house note, gas, electric, food, that's absolute minimum. And so what you ladies need to understand is that, a lot of these men who are negotiating with you, and that's just what this is, a negotiation, they just don't think you're worth it. They don't think you're worth it. They don't think you are worth the sacrifice it would cost to pay for your total expenses. Now, the other thing you have to understand is this. There are some women who are able to get men to pay 100% of them. And those women, they might come cheap themselves. They might not demand a lot. There are other women who you may not think should have the sexual marketplace value for a man to want to pay for her 100%, but there's some other mitigating factors in that. For instance, she could have been there with him since he was broke. She could have been there with him since high school, before he became successful. He could have been there with him since he was in college. And so he owes some duty to her. He has some sense of loyalty to her. She was there when he was broke. She cooked for him. She cleaned for him. She comforted him. And so now that he's made a success out of himself, he feels a certain obligation to bring her up to the standard, the best standard he can for her. And this may be her being 180 pounds with 2 kids, especially if they're his kids. This may be her being a little bit older, and he has the options of all these younger women, but this 45-year-old woman has been with him since he was 18, and so, he's gonna sacrifice and give her everything. That's a different situation. And the same man that might sacrifice for a 180-pound woman, or 200-pound woman even, that's been with him, is not gonna do the same for a woman that he just met. For instance, you got a millionaire, or we'll call it a high value man, a successful man, whatever you want to call it, man. A dude that all the women say they want. And, his ex-wife is 180 pounds with 2 kids, right? They separated for whatever reason. That don't mean he's gonna be willing to sacrifice for another woman who's overweight with 2 kids, because those aren't his. He doesn't see her as valuable in that regard. He can get more for his money. He doesn't see her as worth the debt associated with paying for her and keeping her up. Now, a lot of you all are saying, well, some men do. Yeah, those are a certain group of men who do find you valuable. They do find you worthy of having all your bills paid. But a lot of that has changed because men in general, especially Western men, have raised their standards. They have more options now. The internet has showed them all they need is a passport to go other places, to get a plethora of women who are fit, feminine, and beautiful. And so because of that, they're exercising those options. They see they can get more for their money. So when they compare you on an international scale to what they can get, they don't see you as valuable as the men who came in the past. So things have changed, especially with the rise of dating apps. They can go back onto that dating app and find a woman just as beautiful as you or with less luggage. So why wouldn't they do that? Why would anybody with common sense not want to get the most for their buck, especially considering how hard it is to get money, how much you have to sacrifice, the time, the energy that you got to put in to get paid? Of course they're going to go and try to get the best for their buck. It's the same thing as when you go to a store, when you go to a shopping mall. You want the highest value for the least amount of money, you know? And if you got to pay for it, then you got to pay for it. And that's understandable. But a lot of these dudes won't tell these women the truth. The truth is, you are not worth it. The man that is telling you, who is sitting across from you or standing across from you saying, I believe a woman should pay 50-50. There's another woman who not only would he pay 100% of her bills, he'll make up shit to pay on her behalf. You understand? He likes her so much. He over there bringing flowers and candy and buying pearls and diamond necklaces and all kinds of stuff. Now, here's another caveat to that. There are some women who have a man who is willing to pay all the bills, but then they mess that up. How do they mess it up? What they'll do is they'll start acting like they're the man in the relationship. They'll start exercising their dominance. And then guess what? You like, well, if you're going to act like a man, I'm going to make you pay like a man. You want to have say-so like a man, I'm going to make you pay like a man. Because see, along with paying for all the bills should come some authority and some control and some say-so, some superior say-so in how things should be run. And if you want to basically cut his balls off and tell him, no, not only are you going to pay all the bills, but you're going to do what I say, then you don't want a man, you want a slave. Basically, he working for you to come pay all your bills, and you get to tell him what to do. Guess what? That makes him a slave to you. And most men, after a while, they don't like it. So even if he is willing to do it at first, after a while, he like, nah, it's not worth it. And so you got to keep that in mind. Now, a lot of you women won't take this. You don't like what I'm saying. It bothers you. Yes, irrespective of your ego. These men don't think you're worth it. Just because you are issued a vagina at birth does not mean you're as attractive as the next woman in line. It doesn't mean that you have the same qualities that other woman has just because you share a similar female anatomy. It's just not the same. And dudes, for whatever reason, they won't tell these women you're not worth it. If you could sit across from the table and sit in front of a man who would be completely honest with you and who could articulate himself and who has the emotional and intelligence to explain to you exactly how you feel, he would say, you do not motivate me to the level where I feel like sacrificing for you to that degree, where I am responsible for paying 100% of your expenses throughout the duration of this relationship. I don't feel like making a sacrifice for you. That's a big sacrifice. We make that for our children, but typically we cut them off until they become adults, till they can take care of themselves. And back in the day, For women, when they got married, we made them the responsibility of their husbands. So to ask somebody to take care of you from the time they meet you to the time till death do them part, or to the duration, till the relationship is over, that's a big sacrifice. And some of you women don't realize you're just not worth it in these men's eyes. Now, again, there's a simp everywhere. And there probably is a man for every woman out there. He might not come in the package that you want. He might not look like you want him to look, act like you want him to act, but he will make that financial sacrifice for you. You could be 5'4", 180 pounds with 4 kids. The cuter you are, the better your shape looks, right? Hell, you could even be built like a brick, and I don't mean a brick house. I mean like a SpongeBob SquarePants type brick. And there's a dude out there that'll sacrifice for you, but you probably don't want that guy. You see, you probably find that guy undesirable. So, you know, it's really not that complicated when you lay it out like that. He doesn't see you as that valuable. If you want a man to pay 100% of your bills, then you're going to have to find a man who finds you valuable enough to make that sacrifice. If he's not willing to make that sacrifice, then recognize he's trying to get you on the cheap because he doesn't want to play full price for you. He'll play, you know, he'll entertain you, but he wants you to pay your way. That's all he's saying, because I don't feel like you that valuable. Take that same dude a year later, 2 years later, after you get out the relationship, and he's found a woman that he's willing to make that sacrifice, and they go on off and get married, and you sitting there confused like, what does she have that I don't? She probably has his interest. You know, she may have his heart, and there's some other things associated with it. A lot of women don't like to hear the fact that typically the younger a woman is, the prettier she is, the more in shape she is, the more willing men are to make that sacrifice for those women. But by the time they get 35, 40 years old, and then they got children and issues and stuff, like men are really, they don't want to deal with it. It's the juice is not worth the squeeze at that point. It's just old, bitter, rotten juice. And so you ladies just have to accept that. You know, these are some realities of being an adult. There's some things that you may not like, but as an adult, you just have to accept it, and that's it. Men have had to accept these realities all of there's short dudes out there, and they got to compensate for their shortness by excelling in other areas. There are poor men out there, and they got to compensate and excel in other areas. It is what it is. This is life. And you can't always have the things you want. So for you ladies, for this whole 50-50 conversation, look, I'm going to tell you, the reason I'm willing to pay 100% of the bills is because I'm very selective with the women I deal with. The only women I deal with are women that I deem as worth paying 100% of the bills. That's it. And on top of that, they get extra stuff. If I found a woman who had a child, and she was that high caliber of a woman, I mean, she just, my God, you know, that I'm willing to pay not only for her, but an extra person, shit. She had to be a hell of a woman. She would have to be a hell of a woman, I can tell you that now. But I've done that before. And so that's why I'm speaking from experience. I'm not speaking as a person who is not. And then there's other women, if she even... there's some women, if they even burp at the table, I'm gone. You know what I'm saying? I can't believe you mixed the mashed potatoes with the peas and it's Tuesday and that's only something we supposed to eat on Thursday. I'm gone, because you have a low tolerance for women that you really don't want to be around. The least you could do is make them pay half. Some of you dudes are like, the woman pays all your bills because she has to pay for you to be around. So look at that situation. You know, again, men are very easy to understand. If they want you, they're going to have you. If they want you, they're willing to sacrifice everything they have to get with you. If they want you, they're going to do what they have to do to get you. They're going to work hard. They're going to do everything. They're going to be there. They're going to spend the time, the energy, and the resources. But if they want you on the cheap, you got to recognize that they don't really want me. They want to have me in their presence, but they don't really want me like that. And if that's not something you can deal with, ladies, you need to move on. Until you fellas, man, keep it 100 with yourself. I know there's some dudes out there right now, well, you know, I was with my wife and we built ourselves up and now we're successful. Yeah, okay. So you got her on the cheap early. That's basically what you did. And then when you came up, because of that sense of loyalty, you kept her around because you know that would have been dirty if you had used that woman through those young years when you were trying to build yourself up. But really, realistically, you know you can get more for the value. You know you can get more. You know you can. But, you know, you're being a nice guy. You're not being treacherous because, you know, that looks bad. You have a woman with you all this time, and then you get to the point where you're successful and you leave her. And so that's another game the women play. And that's a smart game. Stick with him when he's down. Work with him till he's up. You see what I'm saying? But it's not that he wasn't willing to pay all your bills. It's just he couldn't at that time. But at the point where he could, not only did you get all your bills paid, but you got everything taken care of. That's a crapshoot because you're relying on potential. Now, there's ways you could, you know, there's ways in which you can measure the possible potential of a person. If you got a person who's a third-year medical student, that might pay off. If you got a person who's a 30-year-old rapper, that might not pay off. If you got a dude who's a 26-year-old trying out for the NFL, that might not work out either. You see? So you ladies got to be intelligent when it comes to that. But other than that, that's my thoughts on this whole 50-50 thing. Fellas, keep it real. If you don't like her, you don't like her. You need to let her know. Stop wasting these women time. You women need to have better sense. Stop going after men that don't want you. Go after the men that you qualify for. Go after the men that's on your level, and you'll be better off. That's what I think.